So, hello everybody and welcome. Yes, welcome back here at BSN Network. Here back here, BSN Network. This is the BSN Network podcast here today. It is Thursday, July 22nd. Hopefully everybody's having a good day so far and a good rest of their day yesterday. It is, in fact, Thursday, July 22nd here today, coming off of another Yankees win last night, another big night in the baseball world, and another big night in the hockey world as the NHL held its expansion draft last night for the 32nd NHL team in the league, and that is the Seattle Kraken, as the New York Rangers, New York Islanders both lost some player to that team. Obviously, Rangers losing Colin Blackwell, Islanders losing Jordan Eberle, two forwards to the Seattle Kraken, as last night was the expansion draft. I'll get to that in a little bit here. And obviously, the Yankees last night got another win. Mets were able to finish off the Cincinnati Reds series with a win. Marcus Stroman was dominant. I believe pitched like 8 innings, 1 hit, 7 Ks, and like a walk or something. He was on fire yesterday. He was rolling. He could have went another inning, but with the with the Mets blowing out the Reds, 7-0 or something like that. It was smart for him not to. I was watching some of that game, obviously, since, the Yankees game wasn't on in the day. It was a day game. I was watching some of that game, and, it was just, what Stroman's done for the Mets has been something else. He's given them much needed production. He's given them, a lot of really great things, and he's done his job, and it's been great. It's been fun to watch, whenever he takes the mound. And I'm a Yankee fan, obviously. I like Stroman a lot. A couple years ago at the deadline when he was available, I wanted the Yankees to go out and get Stroman. The Yankees were one of the teams to go out and get Stroman, and Stroman actually kind of said he was surprised that he wasn't with the Yankees. I also wanted the Yankees to go out and get Taijuan Walker last season. That obviously wasn't the case. But yeah, the Yankees obviously get a win last night as well. And man, oh man, I don't think many of us expected the New York Yankees to be this good with this roster. Can we all agree on that? I don't think many of us expected the New York Yankees to be good on this roster, with this roster, rather. It's just crazy. Ryan Lamar with a walk-off single last night. It's just, it's mind-boggling because, I feel like in a way, as much as, when we first heard about this and we were all not happy about it and all that stuff, I feel like in a way this is kind of a little bit of like a refresher. It's like some new faces, in a way, like newfound energy, like guys that are just trying to make a mark, making a roster spot, guys that are bringing energy. Like, it finally seems like, and I was talking to someone about this a couple days ago, and I've probably already mentioned this on the podcast within the past couple days, talking about kind of the energy level with this team. Like, it seems like this team now has, like, life. Like, it seemed like this team is, like, alive. Like, it's just, I don't know, something about it. And it's not just because we're winning. It's just the way we're winning. Like, these young guys, in a way, are bringing, like, added juice to this locker room. It's just weird. It really is. It's crazy that, this team with all these injuries would be doing this successful. But, hey, we are, and that's how it is. And, you got to take it. You got to be happy about it. And we sweep the Phillies last night. You got close there towards the end. You blow the lead 5-5. You were able to come back and win 6-5. And, definitely bullpen was an issue. You're lucky that you were able to go into that game not having to use many of your you did have to put Britton in and stuff like that. But, hopefully Chad Greens, those guys, those players, would be healthy and all, not healthy, but, because, they aren't injured. They'll be all well rested up and be ready to go for this Boston series. And tonight is the start of the Boston series. It's a 4-game set, Thursday through Sunday. So tonight's the night. Tonight's a big night for the Boston series, and should be good. So the Yankees play tonight, start up a series against Boston, which should be good. I'm excited for it. Hopefully the Yankees are able to come out on top. This is a big series. This is the biggest series of the season. Because if the Yankees at least take 3 of 4, we're buying at the deadline. Because even if you lose the series against Tampa, you've already put yourself in a position. This series right here is really the Yankee season. We're 4-1 right now coming out of the All-Star break. We took 2 out of 3 from Boston, and we took 2 from Philly. So we're 4-1 coming out of the All-Star break with a roster that, and we're on a 4-game win streak. I should mention that. 4-game win streak, 4-1 out of the All-Star break. So, pretty crazy. But let's get to the topics for today's podcast. Like I mentioned, Kraken roster got released yesterday. The new expansion team in the NHL, Seattle Kraken, got their roster released yesterday. They did the expansion draft last night. It was pretty cool. Cool venue for it. It was like right off the water there in Seattle. And then you all saw, obviously, the city over there. They built a whole stage for it. It was pretty cool. It was a cool event. But yeah, obviously, the Seattle Kraken have selected their roster. They took one guy from all of the NHL teams. And now they are... they took one guy from every NHL team, except I believe Vegas was not on there. But obviously, as we all know, they are now got their roster filled out. They're still trying to make some final moves, maybe some trades, maybe some things like this. I kind of wanted to talk about their roster. I kind of wanted to get into what the roster looks like, its strengths, its weaknesses. I also kind of wanted to told you like, not that there's a face of the franchise yet, but I always find this cool to do. Like, if you always go by every team in the league and you think, like, who's the face of their franchise? Or you think of, like, I was doing this a couple weeks ago. Like, who's the top jersey seller on each team? I'm kind of going to do that with the Seattle Kraken. I'm going to kind of give you, like, who I think will be the face of the franchise. Like, who's going to be the guy that's going to be the big name, the big contributor, the guys that everyone's going to, fall in love with, all those guys. Like, that's what I want to kind of predict here. So I'm going to give you that, give you the roster, strengths, weaknesses, overall grade for the Kraken, because the Kraken took a little bit of a different approach to this expansion draft than the Vegas Golden Knights did, and I'll tell you that in a second. So we'll get to that. And then we'll get to the Yankees kind of update. They swept the Phillies update, give you a preview to the Boston series. I want to get into the Yankees. Another big win. Last night it got close there. It definitely got close. I got worried. I'm not going to lie to you, I was worried. I was nervous watching that game last night. After, 5-2, I got comfortable, and then all of a sudden, Britton was struggling. Britton is just not himself. I don't know what it is. He's just not doing well. And then Nick Nelson comes in, and don't even mention Nick Nelson. I cannot. Not trying to be mean. I get it. He's young, and I get it. He's trying his best out there, but no. He's just not the answer. He struggled, and then. I shouldn't say he struggled. He came in with, the second or third of the bases loaded or something like that. So I really shouldn't say he struggled, but he didn't. I would have loved for him to get in and out of that inning quickly. And, a guy like Chad Green could have done that. We'll see. He did that the other night. We would have, who knows, we'll see what Chad Green does this series, but who knows what Chad Green would have done in that situation. But, yeah, it's going to be interesting. So, going to get into the Yankees series here, get into the update, all that stuff. And then I also wanted to get into the New York Sports Update. As always, we'll finish off the podcast with the New York Sports Update here. Yankees play today. Start up the four-game set up against Boston, which is a big four-game set. This isn't just no four-game set in the middle of the June. This is a four-game set to possibly decide your season. So the Yankees will play today against Boston, start up that series. Mets have a day off today. They will start up a three-game set tomorrow against the Blue Jays. So pretty cool. Blue Jays played their final game yesterday in Buffalo. Obviously, that was their home for the COVID season last year, and then some of this year they started in Florida, then they moved back up to Buffalo, and finally on July 30th they will be back at Rogers Center in Toronto. So finally they're getting back to normal. Toronto sports seems to be getting back to slightly normal. I'm assuming next season the Toronto Raptors will also be able to go back to Toronto. We'll see how all that plays out. So so their next homestand will be back at home, like really back at home. And that's in Toronto. They've obviously been at Buffalo, and Buffalo has been great, for kind of on the fly, out of the middle of nowhere last season, needing to play at a minor league ballpark. What they did, the renovations they did, especially this off season, they did a lot more renovations to it since they had more time, adding more lights, actually, fixing up some things around the ballpark. Because, minor league ballparks, they're not bad. They're nice. Some of them are nicer than regular ballparks. But, you need, sometimes the lighting and some of the clubhouse stuff is not as up to speed as an MLB. And that's how it is. I mean, the minor leagues is not going to be as nice as the MLB. Like, it's kind of, it's a little different. So they had to kind of upgrade, some of the things there, the playing field and stuff like that for the MLB. So, with all that being said, got a lot on tap for this Thursday podcast. So with all that being said, this is the BSN podcast, and let's get right into it. So last night was the 2021 NHL expansion draft. The Seattle Kraken are the 32nd NHL team to be added this year, as they will be the newest member of the NHL. Seattle Kraken out of Seattle, Washington. Seattle finally gets a hockey team. They obviously had a football team. They have a football team and a baseball team. Obviously, the Seahawks and the Seattle Mariners. They had a basketball team in the Seattle Supersonics that is now the Oklahoma City Thunder. We all know that. They relocated to Oklahoma City. They are now the Thunder. And they never had, I don't believe they really have ever had a hockey team. They might have, really long ago, but this is kind of a refresh here. Now Seattle gets a hockey team. And, the Seattle Kraken are their name. We already knew the name. We already knew the players, or not the players. We already knew the name, the jerseys, all that stuff, the logo. That stuff all got released a little bit ago. Actually, that stuff got released last year. Last year that all that stuff got released. Because in 2018, they announced that they were going to have an expansion team. And then 2020, last year, I believe, was the year where they announced the jerseys, announced the logo, announced, I believe 2019 announced the arena, because then they had to build it, Climate Pledge Arena. I believe they're still building that a little bit. Obviously, arenas are going to take a year or two to build and all that stuff. So, last night was the expansion draft. So, the expansion draft, obviously, is kind of like the icing on the cake, to officially getting your franchise started, because you start off with obviously officially naming the franchise, getting your name, finding the arena, finding the place to play, all that stuff, getting all the jersey design, all that fun stuff. And then finally getting the roster of guys, finally getting the guys on the roster to, build around, and finally getting the pieces on the roster to hopefully build a winning team is now in place. And the Seattle Kraken last night drafted many players. Obviously, each team had to give in a protected list and a non-protected list. So how the expansion draft works is each team does not, the Kraken don't get to choose, I want this guy from this team. I don't want this guy. I want this. No, they don't do that. If they did that, teams would be overpowered, because they would just take the one guy from each team. Now, cap space would get out of control, and they would have no money to spend. But either way, they would find, some really big superstars in the league. So each team gives their unprotected list, which is the list of about 5-6 players that you can pick. These are the 5-6 players that you can pick. Go ahead and pick them. And then they give them their protected list, which is the guys that you cannot pick. Those are the guys that either they're free agents and they're working on deals. Those are the guys for example, the Rangers protected Artemi Panarin. That makes sense. They're not going to put Panarin unprotected. Panarin was protected. That's your, arguably the best players in the Rangers and arguably one of the best players in the league. You're not going to give him up. So that he was protected. Guys like, just guys like Connor McDavid, all those guys are protected, right? You always have to protect players, and you always have to unprotect players. So the unprotected players are the guys that the Seattle Kraken can draft. And last night, they drafted all those players. So I'm going to read you the guys that they drafted. Now, the Seattle Kraken this year, and I'm going to read you the roster in a second. I feel like this draft, the Seattle Kraken took a little bit of a different approach to the expansion draft and what the Vegas Golden Knights did. And I think a lot of people can agree with that. I think a lot of people can see where I'm coming with that. And I don't mean that the Kraken roster by any means is not good, or it's a roster that's not going to be successful. But it's more of a roster, kind of like a building type roster. A roster that still needs pieces to be built. They got all the pieces now, but, I still feel like this is a roster that's still, relatively, they got some young guys, a roster that still, can develop, a roster that changes will still need to be made. You kind of just, went out. They did not spend a ton amount of money. They did not go out and get all these big name players. They passed up on Carey Price. They passed up on Vladimir Tarasenko. They went out and got guys, they might not be the biggest names in the world, but they got guys that they believe in, which is a little different than what the Vegas Golden Knights did. Vegas went out and got a lot of the big names, the Jonathan Marchessaults, the Marc-Andre Fleury, right? They went out and got a lot of big names, a lot of guys with high contracts, and that's why Vegas has been so successful, because in a way, Vegas went out and built a super team, in a way. Like, they built a super team. Now, I do also think some teams learned, who to protect and who not to protect, because with the whole expansion draft, that was kind of all a new thing back in 2017 when Vegas did it. And now teams are kind of used to it. They're not going to go out and, teams are kind of used to it. They're not just going to go out and, unprotect all their best players. So definitely, and Vegas too, winning early on in their franchise, you got some more players to go over there. They obviously drafted Mark Stone and all those guys in the expansion draft. So Seattle definitely took a little bit of a different approach. They kind of took a patient approach, if you get what I'm saying. They took an approach that is kind of like, they took like a patient approach. They took an approach that, not that we want to go into this a rebuild. Like we don't want to go in losing. We obviously want to start off on a good start and try and win. But we kind of want to also see what it's all about. Like let's see, kind of how this team works together. It's kind of going to be maybe mixing and matching for the first 1 or 2 years of this franchise. That is kind of the approach that they took in a way. They didn't take they didn't take approach like win now or we're done. They kind of took a patient approach. Now, sure, did they get out there and get some guys that are really good? Yes, they did. But they also got some guys that are young, still learning. They definitely got some guys that have struggled throughout their careers, but, obviously they see some potential in them. They took a little bit of a different approach. They took an approach of, let's be patient. Let's, let's get cap space, right? Free agency's big. Let's save up money. Let's draft a lot of these guys, but let's save up some money. And, let's go out and maybe get some of these big name guys, but also fill in some of these gaps with some younger players that we believe can either be the answer or some younger players that down the road are trade pieces or are guys that turn into something big. And that's kind of the approach that they took. Vegas took the approach of we're going all in on winning. We're going out and getting any player that we can. That's how we're going to do it. Seattle took the more patient approach of we're going to go out, we're going to get some big-name guys, we're also going to get some young guys, we're going to get some guys with speed, we're going to get some guys that, fully haven't hit their potential yet, we're going to take things a little slow. Because, sure, without a doubt, they passed up on some big-name players. Now, I know a lot of people disagree with them passing up on some big-name players. I tend not to. I don't blame them for passing up on Carey Price. This contract's extremely big. And to take that in, that's extremely big. Especially when you could have got a guy, Chris Driedger, from Florida, who had an excellent year last year, a guy like him who is, younger and not as big as a contract and could almost give you just about the same amount of production, you definitely go out and get Chris Driedger. I know some people are mad about Vladimir Tarasenko. Well, I think it said a lot with them not picking Vladimir Tarasenko. They're trying to build the right culture in Seattle, I really believe. With them not drafting Vladimir Tarasenko, it seems like they're building a culture where, it's all about the team. We're not here about individual goals. We're not here to see what this guy could do and what this guy can do. They also didn't want to take on his big contract. They're here to win. They're here to win team championships, and that's why I think they went out and got Vince Dunn. Now that was a little bit of a questionable move. Everyone might have wanted him to go out. Might have want the Seattle Kraken to go out and get, Vladimir Tarasenko, but at the end of the day, you go and get Vince Dunn, who is a defenseman. I don't think he's fully lived up to potential yet. It's kind of an interesting move, but it's a move where, who knows? Maybe he's a trade target down the road. So Seattle, like I said, took a little bit more of a patient approach. Like, I don't look at this roster and say this is a Stanley Cup team. I don't. Now, is that a bad thing? No. It's going to be the first year of your franchise. Okay? Vegas, however, like they said, they took an approach of we're winning it right now. Like they set a Stanley Cup mandate in a way in their first 3 years. Like, that's how it was for Vegas. And it's not how it's going to be for every team. I look at this roster and I look at this roster could have arguably one of the best defenses in the league. And that's the truth. And I'll read you some of their defensemen in a little bit. They've got some really good defensemen. This is a roster that's going to be, when it comes down to late in games, when it comes down to winning games, this team's got physicality. This team's got very good defense. Now, scoring might be a little bit of an issue on this team, but they've got some guys that, skate well. They've got some guys that, might not be the golden scorers that they are, but they've got some guys that are, physical, skate well, play hard, hit hard, guys like that. Now, are they the best scorers in the league? No, but they'll get in front of the net, they'll get in your face, and they'll try to force pucks on net. But their defense, the defensemen that they drafted, arguably you could say they got a couple top 10, top 5 defensemen in the league after who they drafted. So I look at this team and I say strength, a defense. Weakness, your offense a little bit. But that's also, going to come, I think, down the road if you make some trades and, some of these young guys developing. But like I said, do I look at this roster and do I say, oh, this is a Stanley Cup roster? I would say not yet. Now, do they got the goaltender? Yes, I do believe Chris Drieger is the goaltender of the future. Do they got the defenseman? Yes, they do. Forwards is going to be, I think, a work in progress. And I think nowadays hockey, where we see so much more physicality, I think Seattle took the approach of, we got to go out, get physicality. We got to go out, that guys are there going to win games in the trenches for us. We don't want guys that are just going to score and not do anything else. We got to go out and get guys that are going to win in the trenches. And that's even some of the forwards that they drafted. You're talking about guys that are still physical. They're not defensemen, but they're still physical and they still get to the net. Are they your electric scorers like Austin Matthews, Connor McDavid, and all them? No. But they're physical. They get to the net. They'll score. They put shots up. That's kind of how their approach was, I feel like, with the offensive side of the puck. All right, so with all that being said, let's get to each of their picks. And I'm not going to break down each pick, although I will tell you, some of the big picks that they definitely took, because they definitely had, they definitely had some, big picks. So, all right, so obviously, like I said, a roster, like I mentioned, that does not, it's a roster that it's a roster that's not going to look like, it's not a roster that's, by any means dominant, but it's a roster that will go out. This is a roster that's definitely going to be physical, and it's a roster that I do think will win some hockey games. A lot of people are criticizing this roster a little too much just because of the fact that they passed up on some other guys, and I get that. But you also got to realize cap space, trades, they could do a lot. Like, this isn't just their roster. They could do a lot more with this. Alrighty, so let's get this started here. So, Anaheim Ducks gave up, or they drafted from the Anaheim Ducks was Hayden Fleury, who's a defenseman. They drafted Arizona Coyotes forward Tyler Pitlick. They drafted Boston Bruins defenseman Jeremy Lauzon, and Buffalo Sabres Will Borgen defenseman. So right off the bat, defenseman, forward, defenseman, and you see where they're going with this. These are their first couple picks. Hayden Fleury from Anaheim, defenseman. Tyler Pitlick, forward from Arizona. Then you go Boston. Boston was Jeremy Lauzon, defenseman. Sabres was Will Borgen, defenseman. And this is the big one. Calgary Flames, the Seattle select Mark Giordano, defenseman. Now, I mentioned earlier, if there's going to be a guy on this roster that's going to be kind of the face, kind of the guy that a lot of people are going to really like early on, like his style of play, like what he does, his attitude, he's just all around a very good player. A guy who definitely is going to give it his all every night. That's Mark Giordano. And I understand there's been some trade rumors with him and the Rangers, stuff like that, but for the time being, he's a Seattle Kraken. And if he does stay there, this is a guy who I would technically say is probably the face of the franchise. He's the big pick. If they draft Tarasenko, maybe it's Tarasenko. They draft Carey Price, maybe it's Carey Price. But by far, Mike Giordano is the face of the franchise so far. Now, sure, that could change. Who knows? Jordan Eberle could turn into the face of the franchise. I'm just saying a random name. I looked at the roster, Jordan Eberle. It could be any guy. But off the bat, who's probably the fan favorite? I'm going to go ahead and say Mark Giordano, just because of what he brings to the table. And Calgary, they're going to miss him. They're going to miss him. I mean, that's not just the guy you're losing. That's a guy that's a leader in the locker room, has been with the Flames for a really long time, his entire, 15 years now. Another thing I want to say, too, about him, yes, he's up there in age. I believe he's like 37 years old. This is a guy, though, that's getting better with age. I mean, he won a Norris Trophy at 35. So he's actually, look at the numbers. This is something wild because you don't see this often. He's actually a guy that's getting better with age. As his age has increased, as he's gotten older and older, he's actually gotten better, which is actually kind of rare for players, especially in hockey, a physical sport, a sport with a lot of hitting, a sport that these guys' careers don't usually last too long. It's usually, if you could play 10, 12 years in the NHL, you're really good. Some of these guys' careers don't last very long because they're taking hits every night, same thing with football, right? So for a guy that's taking a lot of hits, that defenseman, a guy that hits hard, he definitely is, Mark Giordano, definitely a guy that is in a situation where I would tend to say, is probably early like the face of the franchise. But it's you can't say it yet because they haven't even played one game. But if you had to pick one, it would be him. Then they selected Morgan Geekie, forward from the Carolina Hurricanes. Then they selected John Quinnenvale, forward from the Chicago Blackhawks. They took Jonas Adamskoy, forward from the Avalanche. I know a lot of people aren't high on that pick. The people are kind of grading that pick as a C or a B. I believe he's going to turn into something. He's a guy that, definitely has some talent. He's shown it. He's had some potential. I don't know. Just with an Avalanche team, he's already experienced some winning. He's gone to the playoffs. He's got some experience. A guy who I believe could be, one of those under-the-radar guys who at first people didn't believe in, but now I really believe he could be one of those guys. And that's Donsky. He's shown some potential. Has he shown his full potential? I don't know yet. But definitely a guy that, Seattle Kraken, depending on their system, he's already had some winning. Definitely a guy that I believe could make an impact on this team. Then they selected Gavin Bayweather, defenseman from the Colorado Avalanche, from the Columbus Blue Jackets. Jamie Oleski, from the defenseman from the Dallas Stars. Definitely a good pickup there. Another physical defenseman. Dennis Cholowski, defenseman from the Detroit Red Wings. This is another one too. Adam Larson, defenseman from the Edmonton Oilers. This is a golden move. Mark Giordano and Adam Larson, them two together is going to be something else. And they've obviously played against each other, being up there in the North Division, obviously this year, and obviously them two being really solid defensemen, doing things very similar, physicality. They do bring an offensive spark. We've seen Mark Giordano. He can get to the net. He could score. Adam Larson, get to the net. He could score. I had him on my fantasy team. Both these guys play very similar. They're physical, but they could also get to the net and force shots up. Chris Driedger, Florida Panthers goalie. Like I said, even though many people wanted to take Carey Price, okay, the contract is less. He's a little bit younger. He's also a guy that I believe, in terms of talent, Carey Price is very good, but Chris Driedger has a ton of talent. He showed just a little bit last year. So that means Chris Driedger. Curtis McDermott, defenseman from LA. This was one of these picks, too, where it's kind of like, a guy who takes a lot of penalties. It's one of these picks where, let's see if he can turn into something. Maybe if we put him into a new system and stuff like that, let's see. These are one of those picks. Then Carson Saucy, defenseman from Minnesota. So you look here. You look at their first, 15 or so picks. You're talking about defenseman. It gets a little more forward heavy towards the tail end here, but that's also because you get some good forwards here. Now they do start off with defenseman Cal Fleury out of Montreal. So Montreal, if he's drafting Cal Fleury, and definitely this is a move that a lot of people were surprised with. I know a lot of people expected them to take Carey Price. I think it was an eye-opener right after they picked Chris Driedger. I don't think many people expect them to take Carey Price anymore. I actually agree with them passing up on Carey Price. I mentioned that yesterday. Would I have disagreed if they picked him? No, I would have been okay with it. I would have been 50. I'm like a 50-50. If they picked him, it would have been fine. If they don't, I understand. Because if they take him, okay, you're getting a very good goaltender. You're getting a very good player. You're getting a guy that, is very good in the playoffs, too, if you get there. You're also getting a guy that's experienced, been in the league, right? Just that. That in general. Experience for a goaltender is big. But I could also understand why you don't pick him. It's a team that's clearly building off of some younger assets, some guys that maybe have not fully broken out yet in the league, and let's see if they can here. Definitely building off of defensemen, definitely building off of physicality. Seattle's doing this in a little bit of a different way. I do think a lot of people are surprised with some of the picks that they made. I genuinely agree with that. But I think they're also trying to save some money, save some cap space, because I do think this team's going to make some moves. I don't think this is, diving down the road too. This team's going to make some moves. Like I said, they're built a little differently than what the Vegas Golden Knights did. Then they took John Krok, a forward out of Nashville. Sorry, some of these names are a little tough to pronounce. Then Nathan Bastian got selected out from the New Jersey Devils forward. Nathan Bastian, another guy too who, when healthy, went out there, he can make a difference. It's just assuming his role. Is he going to be, bottom 4, bottom 6 forward? Is he going to be higher on the levels? We'll see. Sometimes with newer teams, training camp's big. For newer teams because you got to see your roles. Then they selected Jordan Eberle from the New York Islanders forward. So you go back-to-back forwards here. You have 4 forwards in a row. Then you select Colin Blackwell, forward out of New York Rangers. He had a career year last year with the Rangers, obviously. A guy who brings physicality, a guy who's going to bring quickness. His scoring ability is not next level, but with his quickness, physicality, he'll get to the front of the net. Then they took Joey Decord, goalie out of Ottawa, so he's technically probably the backup. Then they took Karshin Twarsky, forward out of Philadelphia. I know some people had them, Van Riemsdyk, or then, they kind of, that all situation kind of went a little south there. They take Twarsky out of Philadelphia. Another move, like I said, I don't know a ton about this guy. I don't know a ton about, some of these players, but I will tell you this, that it's another one of these moves. Is he going to get an increased role? Is he going to get a role that's, is he going to be, a big-time contributor? I don't think so, but once again, a guy that, maybe you look to down the road as a trade target. Then they took Brandon Tanev, forward out of Pittsburgh, and this is actually a move that not many people like, but I actually tend to like this move. He brings a ton of physicality. He brings some quickness. His shot ability isn't amazing. He definitely can shoot. He definitely can get on net, but it's not, elite by any means, which is maybe why some people are a little worried. I think coming out of this, I don't think Kraken fans are mad. I think Kraken fans might be a little worried about the offense. That's it. The scoring on this team. I think some people might be a little worried about the scoring on this team. They got defensemen. They got the physicality. They got the guys. They definitely got the passion in the guys on this team to, want to win and all that stuff. It's just a matter of, can they and will they be able to produce enough goals to survive in some of these games against some of these higher-end offenses? I think that's one of the big questions facing them. Then they took Alexander True, forward out of San Jose. Very interesting move here. They passed up on Vladimir Tarasenko, and they took Vince Dunn out of Toronto Blue Jays. Oh my gosh, I'm messing all up here. I'm keep the logos. I'm looking at the draft board here, and all the logos are so small. They're right up against each other. Out of St. Louis, the Blues, a defenseman. They didn't take Tarasenko, another forward. They take a defenseman. So as much as a lot of people are surprised they didn't take Tarasenko, I think if you're a Kraken fan, you rather be happy about them taking a defenseman than just another forward. Then they took Yanni Gourde, forward out of Tampa Bay, a guy who won the Stanley Cup, a guy who has been in the winning locker room, experienced winning, has been a key contributor in that winning. This is another very big pick. Then they took Jared McCann of Toronto Maple Leafs, forward. Then they took Cole Lind, forward, Vancouver Canucks. Washington Capitals, Vitek Vanacek, goalie, which actually, surprisingly or not, this is a guy that could be a starter in this league. So it'd be interesting if Drieger, I would agree, say, on opening night, which I believe they play the Canucks, Drieger's going to be in goal. But Vitek Vanacek, definitely a guy that could down the road, maybe not trade him, but definitely a guy down the road that, he showed a lot of potential this season. Obviously, coming from a Ranger fan, I've seen him play a couple times. He showed a lot of potential this season, especially for Washington's goaltending situation. Obviously, losing Brandon Holtby, and then Henrik Lundqvist was supposed to take over. He obviously had some health issues there, and then you brought in Vitek Vanacek, who was technically the third goalie on the roster, and he actually stepped up and played really well. So I don't know if it's a one-year wonder. I don't know if it's a guy that's going to continue to do that, but I definitely agree with this pick. I would tend to say Chris Driedger and Vitek Vanacek are probably going to be the 1-2. That's what I would do if I'm the Kraken. Now, like I said, you also got to see how the rest of it plays out. But another guy if Driedger's playing really well, Vitek Vanacek's not playing much, there's a chance that you could trade him and get some pieces back because he's a young goalie that showed a lot of potential last year. And then Mason Appleton, forward out of Winnipeg, was the other pick. So, automatically, just looking at this roster, if I had to choose the 4 guys in this roster that will probably make some of the biggest difference, Mark Giordano, Adam Larson, Yannick Gourde, Jared McCann, I actually think is going to make a difference. And what is that? So that's Mark Giordano, Adam Larson, Gourde, McCann, and Driedger. Those are probably about the 5 guys in this roster that I think if you look at Cal Fleury too, defenseman, had a good run there with the Canadians. Actually was successful with them during that little playoff run, that Stanley Cup run. Had some good moments. You could say Cal Fleury maybe is like a 6. That's another guy too that I don't know if you want to say yet. A guy who, if he continues to play well, maybe consider him. But those are about the 5 guys that I would say tend to be your guys that are the mains. Mark Giordano, Adam Larson, Yannick Gourde, Jared McCann, and Chris Driedger, goalie. Now, don't get me wrong. Could Brandon Tanev step up? Sure. Could Jordan Eberle step up in a fourth line role and be a contributor? Yes. He's coming from an Islanders team that likes to use all 4 of those lines. A guy who is going to play hard. Eberle's going to play hard. Colin Blackwell, I like Colin Blackwell a lot. What he did with the Rangers last season was unbelievable. Starting off on the taxi squad, coming off, getting 22 points. He genuinely was trying his best out there. I mean, that's a guy that was skating hard. He was physical. He was getting in front of the net. With him, I think it all depends on, who's going to get him the puck. Because last season, not to take anything away from his success, he had Panarin, he had Zibanejad, he had some guys that like to dish the puck out a lot. Are the Kraken going to be able to have that? That's another big question. Are the Kraken going to be able to have a true playmaker? Is Jared McCann going to step up? Is Gourde going to step up? Who's going to step up and be their big-time playmaker? Their guy that's going to feed out assists. Their guy that's going to get assists. Their guys that late in the game not going to look to shoot. He's going to look to pass instead. Because that all of a sudden unlocks a lot of other guys. Like Blackwell, he needs a guy that's going to give him the puck. Nothing to take away from Blackwell. He's not a guy that can do something on his own. He's just not that much of an offensive threat. But he's a guy that you feed him the puck, you get him a good look, he will take advantage of it. That's a big question. Is who's going to be the guy that's going to spread out the puck? Who's going to be their type playmaker? Right? Because you look at all these other guys on these rosters, they got playmakers. Some of them have 2 or 3. Who's the playmaker? Who's the guy that's going to really make this offense click? Like I said, the defenseman, the physicality on this team, by far not the issue. If I had one flaw to take away from this is where's the playmaking ability coming from? Not saying they don't have it, but where's that going to come from? Is that going to be McCann? Is that going to be Gourde? Is it going to be, a guy like Nathan Bastian or someone like that maybe going to step up in a role? Or is it going to be more of get to the net, put pucks on net, score? And the offense too. Their defense definitely is the strength of this team. I mean, I would say they ace the defensemen. I mean, Mark Giordano, who arguably is one of the best defensemen, still one of the better defensemen in the league, coming off another big year last year, getting older, but actually getting better as he ages. That is a very crucial pick there for the Kraken. And then you look at guys like Adam Larson, who had a breakout year last year. Another one that's if this team, if they're gonna win it's gonna be defense. It's gonna be physical. It's gonna be stepping up lane games. It's gonna be blocking shots. It's going to be hitting. It's going to be winning in the trenches. That's how this team's going to win. And there's no issue with that. There's a lot of guys, there's a lot of teams out there that rely on that. The Rangers tend to lack physicality. In this case, though, they actually gain physicality here. So, final takeaways from the Kraken roster. If I had to overall give this thing a grade, personally, I think it's a high, like an 80. Right there, like a B minus or so. Like a B. Like I mentioned. Do I look at the roster and say it's not a World Series. Do I look at the roster and say it's a roster that's going to win a Stanley Cup next season? Or this season, rather. This upcoming year? No. Do I look at this roster and see physicality? Do I look at this roster and see hustle? Yes. Do I look at this roster and see passion? Yes. Now, do I also look at this roster and see offensive flaws? Yes. Where's the playmaking going to come from? That's a question. Where is, the goalie's not a question, but, the goalie's not a question, but are you going to be able to put up enough points? Are you going to be able to put up enough goals to win games? Because if it's a 1-0, 2 goals games every single night in, night out, that's not going to win you hockey games. The offense is just a big question. If they get if their offense is a little bit better, I would grade this team higher. But overall, I think it's a high C+, low B. Probably about a B or so. Just about right there. I don't think it's an A. I don't think it's an A+. I don't think it's F. I don't think it's a D. I think there's definitely some strengths. There's definitely some weaknesses. I think they balance out. I think you look at this roster and I think it's a roster with some talent and a roster with some flaws. And the talent's there, no doubt about that. And we'll see what they do with the talent, and we'll see how it plays out. So that's what I got for the Seattle Kraken and their roster. Took a long time to talk about that, obviously. And now we get to the New York Yankees. And we'll get to the New York Yankees coming up next here. All right, so welcome me back here. Obviously, as we all know, the New York Yankees got another win last night as they were able to beat the Philadelphia Phillies by a score of 6-5 in 10 innings. And yet again, the New York Yankees get the job done with this roster, with these, some of these young minor leaguers, guys like Greg Allen, Ryan Lamar, Rob Brantley, guys like that. I mean, they were able to get the job done. And the New York Yankees right now are in not just a big moment of the season, but their season. This is the Yankee season right now. I mean, this is it. This is their season. This is this is it. Boom. Right. This is it right here. And I can't express that more than how much I've already said, that how crucial these games are, how crucial these next stretch of games are. And this, winning these games like we are, 6-5 in these close games, 6-4. It makes this Boston series that much bigger. And it doesn't make it bigger in a negative way, meaning like, oh, this has to be a win now. But it makes it bigger where all of a sudden now you start winning more of these games. Like, we start looking a whole lot better in terms of wild card positioning and in terms of not the standings, because we're still 7 games back. I would like people to start to forget about start to forget about the division. Okay, I don't think we're going to win a division. Okay, it's not going to happen. I can almost guarantee you that we're not going to win a division. Okay, we're 7 games back of first place, 6 games back of second place. We're not going to do it. Now, let's say we sweep Boston and we go now 3 games back. Different story, but I don't believe we're going to win a division. Okay, wild card is still completely in play, and we're 3.5 back now of a wild card, and arguably you could say this Boston series right here is the biggest. Because let's just say, worst case scenario, we get swept. You're 50-48 now, all of a sudden. Okay, well, we're 4-5 after coming out of the All-Star break, and now you're looking like, okay, well, this 9-game stretch, we got 3 more games to go. What do we do? And I did say, well, if you go 6-5 or 7-5, or I said 13. Obviously, they didn't play one of those games. Now it's kind of like 12. If you find a way to win at least 2 of these Boston games, you look pretty good. Because now you're 6-3 since coming out of the All-Star break. And now you have a 3-game setup against Tampa waiting for you that will start on Tuesday. So the Yankees just got to take this game by game. And, the way we're winning, and I mentioned this earlier to start the podcast, and I'm going to keep saying it because I know I'm repeating myself, but it's just this team, the way these guys are playing, the energy they're bringing, the way we're winning, reminds me of the 2019 New York Yankees, where we had a lot of injuries. We had a lot of ups and downs. We had parts of the season where it looked like it's over. We also had parts of the season where we looked like we were the best team in the league. We had parts of the season where, we had, like I said, parts of the season where you went on some long win streaks and parts of the season where you went on some bad streaks and some bad losing streaks. And you had injuries, and you had next man up. Then you had, some other guys getting hurt. You had guys that were filling in for another guy that was getting hurt. You had the Mike Tauchmans. You had guys like Mike Tauchman, guys like, Florial even got called up, I believe, in 2019. You had guys like Clint Frazier. That's really when he started growing a name for himself. That's when you had all those different players. And that team still found a way to make the playoffs and win a lot of games. And they were winning a lot of games with a lot of injuries, a lot of big-name players out, and they were still finding ways. That's when, guys like DJ LeMahieu really grew a name for himself in New York because there was a lot of injuries. He got more of an increased role. And sure enough, now you look at it and wow, look, DJ LeMahieu's been great for us. And Yankees yet again here sweeping the Phillies in this little 2-game set that they had. You're finding ways to win, and they're doing it with all these minor leaguers. Greg Allen, Rob Brantley, Ryan Lamar. Ryan Lamar hit the walk-off last night. He hit the walk-off. So, it's a new unfound energy with this Yankees team right now. And I know a lot of Yankee fans still don't feel confident. And this is one of these stretches, too, where it's like Yankees had a stretch earlier in the year like this. We've had a couple stretches recently like this where we go 5-6. Or not 5-6. We win 5 of our 6, or we win 7 of our next 8, or we're 8-2 in our last 10 games. We go through stretches like this, and then you go through stretches where you're 2-8 in the next 10 games. And that's baseball, that's sports, but especially with the Yankees. We've been streaky this year. That's why we're 50-44, because we've been streaky. We haven't been able to get on these solidified winning streaks where we're winning. There's going to be a couple losses here and there, but it's not winning and then losing. Winning and then losing. Losing, up, winning again. That's not how it's going to work. And right now, the Yankees are playing consistent baseball. We lost on Friday to the Red Sox last week, 4-0. Then we responded on Saturday, 1-3-1. Responded on Sunday, 1-9-1. Responded again on Tuesday, 6-4. Responded on Wednesday, 6-5. And we are now 4-1 since coming out of the All-Star break, and not just a big series, but a season-deciding series coming up here against Boston. And after that, we're on the road for a while. Then the next time the Yankees have a home game is Monday, August 2nd. So the Yankees are going to be on the road here, 4 in Boston. They're going to be on they have 4 in Boston, 7. They're going to be on a 10-game road trip. 4 in Boston, 3 in Tampa, 3 in Miami. And like I said, if you can kind of get through these next 7 games where you can consider it a gauntlet and you at least go 4-3, then you have Miami, which is very winnable, and by then trade deadline would pass. By then moves would have been made. But we stand right now, July 22nd, and I would say after all those, after the Judge and Gio and Higgy, all them went down, I would say the Yankees are in a much better situation now. And I think a lot of us can agree. I don't think many of us expected the New York Yankees to be on a 4-game win streak and 7-3 in our last 10 after hearing the news of Judge, Gio, Higgy, Cortez, all those guys going on the COVID IL, along with Loaizaga, who is already on the IL with COVID IL. He's obviously back with the team now. So, Yankees have a big series here, starting tonight against Boston. Monty's on the mound. I think if you're the Yankees, I think the first game's crucial. First game's always crucial. I've always said it. First game in series are always crucial. You find a way to win the first game of the series, boom, that takes the pressure off of you because all of a sudden now, okay, we already got 1 win under our belt. Now you just got to find a way to win at least 1 more or 2 more. So that's the mindset Yankees got to go into it. And I feel like in a way the Yankees are going into this with the mindset of taking it game by game. And I'll tell you why. Not that this means everything, because the Yankees did come back last night, and that's all great. Okay, the Yankees, after blowing the lead last night, and they were 5-5, it was one of those things where The Yankees were like, you could have honestly, if you were the Yankees, you could have just been like, you know what, just focus on Boston at this point. Just forget about this game, focus on Boston. And not that they would have said that, not that they would have done that, but the players could have done that. Like, their focus at that point could have been on Boston. Oh, we just got to get done. We got to get the Boston out. No, they kept on fighting. They kept on grinding out at-bats. They kept on having good at-bats, and sure enough, they win. Now, thankfully, thankfully the Phillies didn't score any runs in the 10th inning because Brooks Kriske, who has also been a little iffy, was on the mound, and he was able to get the job done. So thankfully, he shut down the Phillies' bats in the top of the 10th, and the Yankees obviously were able to go out and score in the 10th, and bottom of the 10th, and obviously the stupid second base rule, that would have never happened, but either way, we won. So, now that, that just goes to show you that they are taking it game by game. Because it could have been easy for them just to look ahead and be like, oh, well, we lost this one, it's all right. We got Boston here. That's what matters most. No, that's not the case. Yeah, you have Boston, but you got to go into that Boston firing on all cylinders. And it'd be interesting to see what the Yankees do. Because I'll tell you what, Greg Allen, Estevan Florial, those guys' bats are hot. Like, I don't want them to get sent back down. Like, if you could find a way, Frazier, still on the IL, you're going to have to keep probably one of them up. I know they need bullpen depth. The Albert Abreu's, the Kriskes, the Nelsons, I get that. But I really believe that they need outfielders. Like, if you can please, keep Estevan Florial and Greg Allen and stuff like that up, that would be golden. I think so. Who knows when Judge and Gio are going to come back. They're going to have to go through all the testing and stuff. We'll see when they get back. They could very well come back during the Boston series. Who knows? They've been out since the All-Star break, so Thursday they got it. So it's been a week. So it's about probably 10 to 12 days. So they might come back for the Tampa series or maybe Boston series. Who knows? But it'd be interesting. It's going to be interesting. So 4 against Boston tonight, tomorrow, Saturday, Sunday. Then 3 against Tampa, and then boom. It's the trade deadline. And that's going to be a very exciting day. It's going to be a day full of questions. What are the Yankees going to do? Are the Yankees going to go out and get the big time players in trade deadline? Are the Yankees going to maybe take a step back, or are the Yankees going to do what they always do and not do anything at the trade deadline? These next 4 games, I really do believe will decide it. And right now we're 4-1. Crucial part of the season, Yankees are winning baseball games, and we're winning it with players that not many people know about. We're winning it with players that just got called up. But we're winning baseball games, and that is all that matters. 9 hits yesterday by the Yankees, and we had 10 on Monday. Or 10 on Tuesday, rather. So 19 hits across 2 games for the New York Yankees, and without a doubt, you got to keep that going into the series with Boston here. And hey, we just beat Boston. Whatever you did there, just try to bring it here and focus game by game. You can't start, like I said, don't look at the big picture. You can't look at the big picture and be like, oh, we got to win these next 7 games. We got to find a way to go 4-3, 5-2. No, find a way to go 1-0. Find a way to go 2-0, right? Just find ways to win. Yankees are doing it right now. Yankees are finding ways to win. They're finding ways to win. They're getting some clutch at-bats. They're getting some clutch hits. They're getting some good production from their starting pitching. Asher, right? That was his name yesterday, I think. Wojcicki, who was on the mound or whatever they call him. Asher Wojcicki last night. Look, he pitched pretty well, I thought. He had 4 innings pitched, 4 Ks, 2 or 3 walks, 3 hits, 2 earned, 2 runs allowed. 2 of those were earned, like I mentioned. A guy who got the job done. He did his job. Abreu came in, Wilson came in, Britton came in, Nelson came in, Chapman came in, and Kriske came in. So Yankees right now are definitely shorter on the bullpen, but you got to hope that their bullpen's much better now after that kind of yesterday rest for some of the guys like Chad Green and stuff like that. And today got Monty on the mound. 3-5 with a 4.18 ERA, 1.20 WHIP, 99 innings pitched, 89 hits, 99 Ks, 30 walks, and 12 home runs. And Tanner Houck's on the mound for Boston, who I don't believe the Yankees have faced yet this season. A guy this season who's 0-2 with a 3.38 ERA, 1.28 WHIP, 13 1/3 innings pitched, 15 hits, 15 Ks, 2 walks, and 1 home run. So another guy, too, who Yankees haven't really faced yet. And, Yankees should jump on him early. Then tomorrow you get to Eduardo Rodriguez. Saturday you got Nathan Eovaldi. And then they're facing Eovaldi. And then Sunday you face Martin Perez. And the lineup for the Yankees is Montgomery, Cole, Tyone, Herman. And then you get into all the next series and all that stuff. So, and hey, you got your ace on the mound. You're going to get Cole in your mound in this series as well. And you're going to get Cole in the mound in Game 2, which is a big game. Because if you lose tonight, you can't lose Game 2, because then you got to find a way to win the next 2. So tonight's a big game. No doubt about that. Find a way to win tonight and go on and move on with it. And Yankees, they're getting the job done. I'm happy because we're winning. Like, that's all I'm at. Like, you're winning. I mean, it really is. And, we're winning. We're winning in ways that I don't think many people expected, but we're doing it. And that's all that matters. So that's what I got for the Yankees update here. As they get the job done against the Phillies. That's a good Phillies team, too. That's a Phillies team that is hot. That's a Phillies team that's on a roll. That's not just a Phillies team that's struggling. That's a Phillies team that's on a roll. They were cruising in that game. Cruising going into that series. Phillies are in a similar situation with the Yankees. Like, they got the talent, they've got players, but they're just struggling a little bit. Now, their pitching staff hasn't helped them out, don't get me wrong. And with Eflin going on the IL and all that stuff, it's really just Wheeler now that's going to have to give you a lot of innings for the Phillies. Yankees luckily didn't have to face him. Alrighty, so let's get to the New York sports update here and finish off the podcast. As for yesterday, the Padres-Braves game got suspended. So, Padres are up 5-0, or 5-4 rather. So, that game got suspended. But as for yesterday's completed games, the Giants won, Cardinals won, Twins won, Indians won, Marlins won, Red Sox won, Tigers won, Diamondbacks won, Rockies won, Royals won, Rays won, and Padres won. That was one of the doubleheader games. Mets won yesterday 7-0. Mets moved to 50-43 on the season. So they go out and get the win. And the Yankees, obviously, like I said, won 6-5 in 10 innings yesterday. The Yankees moved to 50-44 on the season. As for today, we got the Tigers and the Rangers. I'll give Tigers the win. Braves, Phillies, give Braves the win. Marlins, Padres, give Padres the win. Rays, Indians, give Rays the win. Cardinals, Cubs, give Cardinals the win. Twins, Angels, give Twins the win. A's, Mariners, give A's the win. Dodgers, Giants, give Dodgers the win. And as for the Yankees play today. Yankees come in this game 50-44. Red Sox come in this game 58-38. This game goes on today, 7:10 p.m. Eastern Time on MLB Network. The Yankees got Jordan Montgomery on the mound. He's 3-5 with a 4.18 ERA. And the Red Sox got, let's get to this here. It's got to load. And the Red Sox got going today. Tanner Houck, he is 0-2 on the season with a 3.38 ERA. And then it's got to, all right. So 60% of people think Boston will win this game. Comes on 7:10 p.m. Standard Time on the MLB Network. You can also find this game on Yes Network. I'll tell you what. Give me the Yankees. Why not? We're cruising. We're 4-1. 4-game win streak. Just give me the Yankees. That's what the Yankees needed, though. They need to get on a big win streak. That's really how it is. Alrighty, as for fantasy baseball, I'm currently losing 139-137. But today I've got going Yadier Molina, Jesus Aguilar, Jake Cronenworth, Austin Riley, J.P. Crawford, Gene Segura, Matt Olson, Austin Meadows, Dylan Carlson. Yeah. Other than that, no new other injury updates or anything like that. I'm thinking about picking up a starting pitcher today, but I don't know who. I mean, Andrew Heaney, I think, starting for the Angels, but I don't really know if I want to pick up him. He struggled this year. Pitching today for the Angels. I don't know I forget who they're up against. I think he's on the mound today. So I was thinking about picking up him, but I don't know. I've got Cole on the mound tomorrow. So it's Friday. I'm down by 2. I'm going to see if he has pitching, because pitching gives you a lot. I mean, I'm down by 2 right now. I got Cole going tomorrow. I think I've got some other guys going as well. I mean, I have to. I mean, I haven't really had much pitching this week, so I have to have something. I mean, Eflin's on the IL. I was thinking about getting rid of Eflin. I mean, I know it'd probably be smarter to get rid of Glass now because he's on the 60-day IL. But if he comes back and it's like late August, September, And it's like the playoffs for fantasy. He's a guy that I'm going to need. I don't know if he's going to come back or not. But if he does, that's a guy that I'm going to need. Eflin, it's weird because for fantasy, he hasn't had a bad year. But you look at his numbers, and they are not very good. Like, he's got a high 4 ERA, just south of 5. And his whip's not great. Whenever he pitches, he lets up runs. But for some reason, he doesn't do terrible for fantasy standards. Like, he does his job. Like, he'll give me 15 to 20 points. Not 50. That's a little bit of exaggeration. About 15 points, not 20. But it's weird because some guys, they give you, like, no points, and he gives me some points, but the numbers aren't great. That's where the numbers come in. It's like the eye test. It's like he might have good numbers and all, but you watch him and they're not that good. You look at his numbers, they might look good, and then you watch him and they're not good. Or you watch him, he looks good. Fantasy, he looks good. You look at the numbers, and it's like, wow, this guy's not that good. So, but starting pitching's big because they could give you 20 to 30 points. So, but anyway, that's what I got for the podcast here today. Hopefully you all enjoyed it again. Yankees play tonight. Start up a 4-game set against Boston. So that's big. And with all that being said, that will do it for the podcast here today. Hopefully you all enjoyed it. As always, I will see you all back here tomorrow. Hope you enjoyed it, and thanks for watching.